just for if anybody has any questions or anything like that, that maybe a general question that hopefully will answer some of the other questions that people may have. Typically I do this as an open forum. If you have any questions that you have related to a specific project or a specific issue, I'll be more happy to address. Again, I'm Robert Smith, Town Manager, Town of Windermere. If not, I can go through a list of various projects that we're working on. I already see that one hand is raised. But again, I'll go through several of the projects after we answer some of the questions that people initially have, because I don't want to take up too much of their time because they're taking the time to actually be on this meeting with us. We do have Susan Carter, who's on the chairman of the tree board. We also have Councilman member Bill Martini. Is he still in here? Yeah, okay. And then we have Public Works Director Tanya Elliott Moore. With that said, I see that not Sandra, but Mr. Brooks, was it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks for the time, Mr. Smith.
No worries.
Appreciate it. This is Joe Brooks. I'm in a butter to the Lake Street Park, and I'm at 327 East 5th Avenue.
Okay.
And we just wanted to get an update on what the progress on the Lake Street Park privatization effort, if there is one. But there are a couple of other little points. I'll try to get them all in one shot here. We've seen a lot of increased activity down at Lake Street Park since we moved in. And I know the town has taken some initiatives up, and like the cameras, and we'd like to know if those are being actively monitored, and hopefully it's making a difference. But what we've noticed most recently is that the walking path that is supposed to be an asset for the Windermere residents is almost being it's being taken over, like with beach blankets and stuff like that. Something we had not noticed before this year. And if there could be some kind of demarcation between what is the beach area and what is the walking area, we think that would be very helpful, whether it be signage or whatever. And the other issue that I would like to bring up for the town, which I believe it should be a concern for the town. I know the safety card, it's easy to play the safety card, and if sometimes it doesn't apply, but in this case, there is a lot of dangerous jet ski activity, especially anything within 100 feet of a dock is a no wake zone. And I understand that enforcing that is not Windermere's responsibility, but having motorized watercraft in the vicinity of swimmers it can be dangerous. And the town knows that is occurring, and that you can't really turn a blind eye to it. I would really like to see some kind of roping off of the swimming area from the motorized, PWCs and boats. And I know that we've started enforcing the 30-foot rule to have watercraft moved away from the beach, and that's very gratifying. But so hopefully, if you could give us an update and maybe future plans on what the town considers important for this issue, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I'll address that. With the walking area / people beaching in the area, and as far as the privatization of the actual park itself, that has briefly been discussed with town council, and they're taking a measured approach. Because if you go to just the privatization of the parks, then we're going to have to repay FERDAP funds, so on and so forth. Especially for the dock that was constructed with FERDAP funds, you're looking at a cost of probably at around $400,000 for the town to repay FERDAP for that. And then we get into logistics as far as enforcing, private versus public. How do we do that logistically? Working with law enforcement. How would that look? How do other jurisdictions deal with that? So that's something that we are going to approach, and we're going to take a look at. Sorry, I sound nasally. I've been fighting a sinus infection for the last 2.5 weeks, and my kids just keep giving it back to me. But that is a discussion that we are going to have, and Yesterday morning, we went live on the actual cameras over at 4th Street and Fernwood. So I can log in right now and take a look at each of those to show you that they are actively being monitored. This is via an app that is accessible to all the law enforcement officers, as well as myself and chief and deputy chief and the sergeants that are on duty. So anytime if we get a call, if we get a text or anything like that, we can go ahead and take a look, and then we can send it out there. And also we can record what's going on out there. And subsequent, maybe an activity occurs over the night, then we can go back and take a look at those videos, and they have tag readers as well. So we can make sure we're identifying not only the people that are misbehaving out there, but also get their tag as well. So we can go ahead and send them no trespassing warnings. We actually did that this past weekend with somebody that stole somebody's boat key. So, those just came into place yesterday as far as going live. So we're going to be actively monitoring those. We do have those 2 locations up, and we do have a 3rd area, which is going to be at the Lake Street area. Would be next to go live, and then the possibility of adding additional cameras over by Palmer Park. And also downtown too. So those I can flip through at any time and take a look and see if there's any activity that's going on. It's definitely gonna be helpful at Fernwood Park right now, because again, we're gonna start moving that gate further out and then have the code system, but we'll get into that a little bit later. As far as the designation of a swim area and the jet skis, that's kind of a double-edged sword. If you create a swim area, if you build it, they will come. So if you have designated a swim area, then you've now identified an area where people can go out and congregate and swim and stuff like that. Then is that more of an attractive nuisance than actually what it is now? So we have to take that into consideration as far as weighing the pros and cons. And then in order for us to establish a swim area, we would have to go through the Board of County Commissioners, who would have to negotiate with Florida Wildlife Commission. And that ties in also to Bird Island, which we Board of County Commissioners met yesterday. And they're always looking at, okay, what is the actual intent of this? Is this going to cure the actual issue that's arising out of what's occurring? The example that they gave at Bird Island, and I think it's because they weren't fully briefed either by staff or by the residents on what is actually occurring over at Bird Island. I know Mayor Demings was Sheriff Demings for quite some time, so he knows the issues. But they were trying, or we're collectively trying with not only FWC, but Orange County, EPD, Audubon Society, and several others to create a buffer between motorized watercraft and Bird Island itself. So it'll range from 45 feet to about 60 to 65 feet. And it's in the northwest area where you see a lot of people congregating, mostly that beach area. And what it would do is that ordinance would establish a no motorized watercraft area within that zone, and it would be designated as a swim area. So people would have to moor up to that, the buoys. It wouldn't be a rope, it would just be several buoys that are up there indicating where the actual area is. And then people could anchor, and then people could swim onto that area that's right there. Now, still illegal for them to actually get onto the island, because that is a bird sanctuary and they are would be trespassed. But again, it's pushing the problem further out, and it's creating an area to where, boats aren't mooring up, people aren't, pitching tents, doing body painting, DJs, setting up their, coolers and parties on the island itself. So it's creating that area to where we have like a demarcation zone where we can actually see, not only from, our perspective, but also from a law enforcement perspective, because it's very hard for them to enforce the noise ordinance as it stands right now. And I know that Board of County Commissioners are going to be looking at revising the noise ordinance to make it more enforceable. So with the Bird Island issue, they're looking at, you had a few people there that were there like, hey, why should you punish everybody for a few bad apples? But those are people that lived in Orlando, they lived in other parts of Orange County. They haven't been dealing with this day in, day out, especially people that live on the Butler chain that surround Bird Island. So we need to get more vocal. We need to start emailing a lot of our council member or commissioners because this is not just something that the town of Windermere can do, or something that we have to work with FWC and Orange County. Now, to get your point as far as establishing a swim area and then a no motorized watercraft zone, the Bird Island issue is step one in Orange County revising their entire boat safety ordinance. Because once we put the light on Bird Island, then FWC and Orange County were like, listen, we have this area, this area, this area, this area, this area. So they started lumping everything into one big pot. And, you know, when the intent initially was, hey, let's take care of the Bird Island issue first, then let's start, you know, looking at other areas. Because again, if you open one area or have all these different areas into this one big pot, then not only are you going to have people coming out in favor or against Bird Island, but then you have everybody lined up for the various other areas that might be part of the ordinance. So we're asking for them to separate each individual area for a separate public hearing. It might be a pain for procedural process, but it's going to, you know, focus their attention on that one area as opposed to just lumping everything into one big pot. So Bird Island's first. We have notified EPD that we want to take a look at this area along Lake Street for the same reasons for the Bird Island issues. But again, if you create a swim area, that does come with its pros and cons. It would eliminate the motorized watercraft from getting close to the swim area, whether it's 45 feet, 35 feet, but they wouldn't be able to moor up to the docks or the lakefront itself. Right now, they're not allowed to go past the normal high water elevation. And that's where we're educating the people that are out there right now. Either we're taking pictures of their jet ski licenses, you know, the codes on them, or just letting them know, listen, you need to go ahead and moor off. And then once we get into the lake, then it's FWC and FWC and OCSO. Now, OCSO and FWC, they're very limited on resources. And you're going to hear that a lot from them because there's a lot of lakes and a lot of other areas that they have jurisdiction on. So a lot of their focus and attention is going to be on the Bird Island area and other hotspots. As far as this area, with the constraints that they currently have underneath the bridge and with most of the complaints being over at Bird Island, as far as enforcement, we'll try to do what we can on working with them on enforcing those if they are passed. But right now, it's probably just the town of Windermere trying to educate those that are out there on making sure that they're far enough from the shoreline that we're able to enforce our ordinances. But that is something that we're looking at with BOCC, EPD, FWC, and others to make sure that we're working with them to create ordinances that are, you know, we don't want to be the fun police because there are people there that are having fun and they're abiding by the rules. It's just, you know, making sure that it's a safe environment for everybody, and the people that are breaking the rules, you know, go somewhere else. Does that answer your question?
Thank you for the detailed response, Mr. Smith. And I understand enforcement is a problem for Orange County. They can't get their boat through the canal right now. They have to put it in on 6th Avenue. Get in there. And I spoke to one of the officers recently. He said they're going to get a boat that has more clearance, that they'll probably be able to get through the canal. But yes, I appreciate what you said, and it's a complex issue. Totally understand. But the walking path demarcation with signs, is there any chance that that could happen?
Joe, let me jump in here for a second. This is Bill Martini. Hi, Joe. Robert, if you don't mind. We did meet on Wednesday with Sandy and Tanya and Jason Bonk, and I think John Fitzgibbons was there also. We talked about the park and the you know, the fact that it literally has turned into Bird Island East. The capacity issues, the number of people that are using the parks, and Sandy sent me some pictures and video of folks that were camped out literally on the path all day long. And I did forward those to Robert and Tanya, Joe. And so when we did talk on Wednesday, we talked about new signage or replacing or moving the signage to the head of the pathway there to make it obvious that it is a walking path. It's not part of the park or it's not actually it is part of the park. It is town property. However, we're trying to encourage people to stay in the park area as opposed to camping out, against your dock or anybody else's dock that's along the walking path. And I believe Tanya's working on that signage and getting that repositioned and a new sign. And Tanya and I will talk about that a little bit more this week. But I think the issue that they're having, Robert, is with the amount of people that are at the park. It is 80 to 100 people on the weekends at any given time. It's over max capacity, and that's it's literally turning into Bird Island East, and that's the concern for the residents. That the residents themselves can't even use the park, or they're hesitant to use it, and having to deal with this all day. Every weekend, which is, nothing new at this point. We are trying to curtail some of the, more egregious behavior with the video cameras. And we did talk to Sandy about that we're just now getting those online, and that's going to give us more detailed information about what's actually happening there and the numbers of people, and it'll give us ammo, so to speak, to talk about other measures that could possibly work there, like possibly limiting the capacity of the parks or the structure, the boathouse, or the dock itself, that kind of thing. None of that's been talked about at council in any real detail, but we are making, minor strides with keeping the boats off of the beach themselves. I know the officers are there talking to people with jet skis and telling them to go elsewhere, or, to get it off the beach. So, at this point, it's baby steps. I know doesn't sound like a lot, but we do have some things in the works, and, we're going to keep chipping away till we get some progress.
Hey, thank you, Bill. Sandy and I both appreciate your efforts to bring attention to this, and we both thank you for your time.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention and for sending the videos. That helps. We create a repository for different issues, and we're able to upload videos and pictures. So, that evidence helps us with whatever direction the council wants to go. It's one thing to hear from somebody, but it's another thing to actually see it.
Yeah, and it is a big, it is a big issue because we have used FERDAP funds to create this park, and the sole purpose of those is to create additional outdoor recreational areas for people to enjoy across the board. We can't limit that to town residents without paying that money back. And I think it's like $140,000, Robert, with interest to pay that back.
It was, I think when we did with the interest, it was getting up there.
I think 140 was the last dollar amount that I heard. And
I think that was the beginning amount, if not more than that. So I think it's a lot more than that, but we'll take a look at that and revisit the exact amount. I know we have it somewhere in our emails and archives.
Yeah, we do. So unfortunately, we're kind of limited with that. But fortunately, we did discover that before we used FERDAP funds for Fernwood Park, and we were able to curtail turning that into a very similar situation. So it's going to be a struggle to get this park back to the point where it's not an issue every weekend, every day, every weekend, and I deal with it personally myself. Just, by fielding the calls and going past there and seeing what's actually going on. So I am chipping away, and as is council, we need to just keep the discussion open and try things and see how they work, and let the cameras do their business and accumulate evidence for that repository so that we can enforce and have ammunition to push changes that will make a positive impact for you guys.
Right. Hey, thanks a lot, folks. Appreciate it. Baby
Right, Joe.
steps.
Thank
Baby
you,
steps,
Joe.
right?
Appreciate
Yes,
it,
sir.
Joe. Thank you.
Take care.
It's government. That's the only kind of steps we take.
Unfortunately, yeah, I'm only one vote, so
We've been working on the Bird Island issue for 11 years now.
yeah, it's a struggle.
So yeah, and then for it to come to VOCC, and then it's an education process with the other district commissioners based on the issues that we're having. I'm sure they have an issue in each district, but even Commissioner Bonilla was just should understand the issues, should understand pretty much what the ordinance was asking. So it's up to staff, the residents, and elected officials and myself to educate them on those issues. So that one is to be determined when they're going to actually hear it again. And if and when they do, which if they're going to have like a public workshop, we'll make sure that we advertise that as much as possible. But emailing and reaching out to not only your district commissioner, but also other district commissioners is always helpful.
So did they pass on that, Robert? Did they table that motion, or what happened?
They didn't take any action whatsoever. They pretty much punted the issue. And when I talked to Liz Johnson when I was leaving, she said that more than likely, because she was maybe having some conversations beforehand, was that they're looking at holding another public workshop that they can utilize for the Board of County Commissioners. Even though we've had stakeholder meetings, we've been working on this for 18 months now. It was 7 individuals that came that morning and had a discussion and were against the ordinance, and you had 2 that were in favor of it. From what Mayor Demings, I understand his point of view is, okay, we don't want to set up an expectation that if we pass this ordinance, then it's going to eliminate all the issues. It's going to eliminate the partying, it's going to eliminate the noise issues. That's not what's going to happen. So he wants to make sure that the expectations are there, that even though people are moving back, that might not stop what is actually occurring out there. It might just move the party back further. And that's why they want to address the noise ordinance. My issue is that I don't want the noise ordinance being included into this, because then where do you stop? They were talking about a noise ordinance just for Bird Island, but then they had noise ordinance issues when they were talking about apartment complexes, suburban developments, industrial. Then you just get into a huge, complete, complex issue when we can do this now, and again, take a measured approach with the moving them out. And people are saying, oh, you're going to put us back into 20 feet of water as far as the depth. You're going to put us into navigable waters. The actual depth of the water that would be putting them back into is between 3 and 6 feet. So some of their arguments weren't based on actual scientific data. It was just based on assumptions that we're going to put them in the middle of the lake, and that's not the case there.
I think the important thing is to eliminate the congregational aspect of Bird Island. I mean, if you live on the chain of lakes, you have to like other people's music. There's just no way around it, because you're going to hear it from all directions, because sound carries across the water. And, they got these big wakeboard boats with the giant stereo systems and that type of thing. And, that's fine. You come and go. But at Bird Island, when the congregation is going on and there's 80 to 100 boats and they're competing to see who has the loudest stereo, it really, I think it's an environmental disaster for one thing, as far as the birds go. And, obviously the residents that have to tolerate it on a weekly, weekend basis. It's, it's very difficult to tune that out. So hopefully they'll make some progress on it.
Yeah, they looked at, especially with, if you live within 499 feet of a issue, then there's no issue because you have to be outside 500 feet. So those people are out of luck when it comes to just like residential versus, neighbors and stuff like that. So, again, that's something that's going to be hammered out through the VOCC, and then we'd probably, since we enacted their noise ordinance, we'd probably follow suit when it comes to Bird Island. But the noise ordinance is pretty hard to enforce.
Yeah.
Again, when you go over there, there's 50, 60 boats. And when FWC or OCSO goes out there and they're trying to figure out whose music is coming from where, it's pretty hard to do. But if you push them back, and then there's limited number of boats as far as reducing the amount of people that are congregating out there, then it becomes a lot easier.
Yep, baby steps.
All right. One exciting project that I know that Susan will be pumped up about is that I did have a discussion with Tanya this morning about the Green Tree Project. I forget what it was called, Tanya, I'm sorry.
Green Hill.
Green Hill.
Yeah.
Green Hill. What it is they're looking for a pilot project, and that's something that I'm fully supportive of. And I believe Tree Board's going to be having a special call meeting to meet about the Green Hill project. What it is it's a software program that is right now being utilized overseas, Singapore, Paris, other countries and cities around the world. And they're looking to put a footprint here in the United States, especially in the state of Florida. So Tanya has met with the representatives, and I believe that Susan Carter has as well. I was presented with the information this morning, and it's something that I fully support, and it's underneath my spending threshold and the Tree Board threshold to approve. So I'm hopeful that they will approve this. And what it does is they do GPS locates of all the trees on public right of way and public property. And they will determine, based on this GPS data, the health of the tree, the age of the tree, and what protective measures have to be completed in order to make sure that we're maintaining a canopy, stuff like that. So they'll, if we lose a tree, then we know, okay, or we know the lifespan of a tree, or if there's some pruning that we need to do as far as sight lines, we can make sure that we do that. And we're going to get a huge discount because we are going to be their pilot project in the States. And again, I think it's something that's well thought out and a great program that we'll be implementing as part of our sustainability plan, which I am now drafting as part of long range planning direction. So thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Susan, for working on that. And I know it's going to be very exciting. I see that Brandy's on too. We are still in Department of Emergency Management review for the Butler and Bessie projects. So whenever we get updates on that, we'll make sure that we provide that to you. They always, and I know Joe's on here as well, that they gave us an estimate of between 3 and 6 months for review. We're hoping to shorten that a little bit. I believe we have a meeting with, not, who we meet, is it tomorrow or it's next week, Tanya, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And that's with the Department of Emergency Management who is processing the grant for us.
So we're trying to work with them as much as possible to accelerate the review process. The issues that they're running into is that a lot of the private entities are poaching the public entities when it comes to engineers because of the supply and demand issues. And so with the continuous transition of reviewers, then it puts everybody's project into a delay. So we're trying to work with FDEM as well as others to try to expedite their review as much as possible. So when we get further along in the process and we believe that we're going to get closer to an actual construction timeline, we'll definitely let you guys know and have a final public workshop to go over the specifics of any items that may have been changed or any additional items that we may be able to include in those projects. I know that Orange County Utilities is in the final review and giving us a thumbs up. I know they did it for Dirt Main. as far as the potable water systems, and I don't believe that we're going to have any hiccups in those two areas. I know there's some requests on 7th and Magnolia for potable water. So hopefully, if and when we get this thing completed, that extension will be easier to absorb financially, either by the town or the resident, to get that to them.
Can I just interject with just one question on that, and then
Sure.
move on? So in terms of construction, we're looking at probably fall or later, you think, before we'd break ground on anything?
Correct. Probably looking at, I would say, with the way things are going right now, if they take their 6 months to review, that pushes us out to probably August. And then, doing the construction bid documents and actually getting it out there, you're probably looking at, I would say, November, December.
Okay.
Because from bid to award, that's 3 months right there. So we're at 9 months right now.
Right. Okay. That was all I needed on that one.
No problem. The 1 cent sales tax initiative, again, that's something that I could pretty much do the presentation right now if I needed to. They've updated their presentation a little bit from the workshop yesterday. They're doing 3 workshops for the BOCC. When I say BOCC, again, you guys can call me out on this whenever I use acronyms or anything like that, but that's the Board of County Commissioners. What they're looking at doing is putting on the ballot for November 8th of this year a 1 cent sales tax. And what that 1 cent sales tax, the revenues that are generated from that would go to 1/3 of it would go to Sunrail and Links. 1/3 of it would go to Orange County roadways and enhancing pedestrian and bicycle safety and their operational maintenance of their current roadways. And then the remaining, or not thirds, I'm sorry, it's 45% to Links and Sunrail, 45% to Orange County, and then the 10% gets, the balance of the 10% gets divided up in between all of the municipalities within Orange County that are willing to participate in the 1 cent sales tax program. So if it does pass, we would start generating revenues starting in January of 2023. Our annual revenues that we're estimating from this 1 cent sales tax, if it were to be put on the ballot and approved, would be about $367,000 annually. And that would be tacked on to our current $400,000 that we have. And the projects that we'd be able to use that for would be road enhancement, not road widening, but road enhancements, meaning that, we can use that money to enhance our dirt road systems, our current road systems, additional roundabouts if the town council deems necessary, and also for pedestrian and bicycle safety, adding a bicycle lane or enhancing our current multimodal systems. So that's money that, would be a great benefit for the town. But from a regional perspective, that's going to have to be something that the Orange County staff is going to have to educate people on. I think they've done a great job so far. If you haven't had an opportunity to review some of their plans and or their presentations, it is available on their website. And even coming up with, if you're on 50, how people do mid-block crossings where they're just walking down the road if they want to get to, the grocery store, if they want to get to, their work or a bus stop. What they're doing now in East Orlando, pretty much Alafaya Trail, is they're actually putting up pedestrian fencing. So in the medians, they have little fencing that's wrought iron fencing. And so it directs people, so you either hop the fence or you have to walk all the way over to where a crosswalk is to make sure that it's safe to cross. We are one of the worst nationally when it comes to pedestrian safety and bicycle safety. From 2017 to 2021, I think there's over 360 deaths when it comes to people being hit by cars. That's just pedestrians walking the street. I believe there's over 45 bikers that have been killed since 2017, and that includes the time that we had the pandemic. So that is going to be discussed further on, I believe, April 5th with the Board of County Commissioners, and then another hearing later in April, and then May, they make their final determination on whether to put it onto the ballot. Bird Island, we went over that. They had their workshop yesterday and they wanted more time to gather more information. So we'll post the video of the meeting on our social media sites and our website, as well as the emails for the various district commissioners, as well as Mayor Demings, to make sure that they are hearing not only the people that can make it, but the people that can't make it, and also hearing from the residents of the town of Windermere. The people that, again, that I saw there, number one, they weren't town residents. There's actually only one town resident that was there. She has some valid points when it comes to enforcement, but again, it's not knowing the logistics of how to enforce a noise ordinance, or some of the issues that the officers have on the weekends when there's so many people out there. But the majority of the people that were there that were speaking out against the ordinance were people that were in unincorporated Orange County. Again, the park cameras, we do have 2 that are up and running, Fernwood and 4th Street. It's amazing what you can do. I can pull up any of the cameras and I could zoom in. One gentleman that I saw walking onto the Fernwood dock and walking back, I was able to pretty much not take a screenshot, but I could see his face and everything as clear as day. So it's something that I think we can use not only from a law enforcement perspective, but also for enforcement of our boat pass and boat ramp new procedures that we're putting in place over at Fernwood Park, which means we're going to be moving the gate over to the entrance of Fernwood Park on 7th and Butler intersection, and then doing a gate code to where, if in lieu of a key, now you have an actual gate code that is specific to what your pass is. So if you give out your gate code to somebody, we'll be able to figure that out pretty quickly based on the time and date stamp of that gate code and the video evidence as well. So you'd be losing your privilege to have a boat pass based on either you giving the code out or either other nefarious activities. That's about, I would say, another 15 weeks away from being implemented, and that's because of the delays of getting the materials that we need to over at the park. And that's the same with Windermere Recreation Center with the fencing of the new playground equipment.
So Robert, we had an incident there a couple days ago where a resident was taking their boat out and they accidentally left their key in the gate and drove off, and someone else who was non-resident, who I believe has been trespassed before, took their key and made off with it. Was that captured on the video, or did the video start after that?
From my understanding, the video started after that, but that individual has been located and has been trespassed.
Okay, good. Okay.
Officers Warnog made contact with him today, and I got the update from Chief. I'm not sure if you were able to get it.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, but the chief said they were going to find this person. I think he's been spoken to before about using the ramps. I don't know how he got in. I'd like to know how he got his boat in, because when he was when he was leaving is when he took the resident's key out of the lock. And yeah, so good. This will be good to control that a little better.
We found it on the West Orange Trail.
Yeah, interesting.
It's amazing how many stories you can have when you finding a set of keys.
Well, this guy apparently had a lot of stories about where the keys were, and so yeah, I know he's been talked to. I think he was arrested, actually, jumping off of the one of the residents' docks by Palmer Park, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but he is trespassed. So if he does show up again, we will be able to arrest him.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Or, in all honesty, a summons for him to come to court.
Yeah.
Because of the new judicial orders that have come down. Pretty much which states that any and all nonviolent misdemeanors will be given a summons.
Okay.
Windermere Road, I know that that has been creating some headaches. I've been getting a lot of calls and emails relative to Windermere Road. That is an Orange County project. We are trying our best to work with them on timing They are doing a resurfacing of that roadway. And of course, they hit the intersection of Windermere Road and Main Street about 1:30 today. Once traffic starts picking up, and thankfully today wasn't not an early release day, but they had the repaving, not the repaving, but the resurfacing machine that goes really slowly, moving over to where it's being stationed until tomorrow during one of the peak times. But we're trying to work, Tanya's working with Orange County, and we're trying to work with Orange County as much as possible to make sure the pain is not too severe. But again, with any road project or any project, there's going to be some headaches when it comes to actually doing some of those projects. As I said, Butler and Bessie, they're still with Department of Emergency Management. Same thing with West 2nd Avenue. Old Dirt Main, we've received okay from Orange County Utilities, and that is just on hold for the time being. We want to make sure when we move forward with the multimodal path and the pedestrian bridge that maybe we can do all those at one time. First and Forest, Tanya, I believe the project is completed. Have they completed the punch list?
Yes, they've completed the punch list, and they just sent us the final site plan, which I provided to the clerk for the record. The as-built, I'm sorry.
Perfect. So that's holding, or that's been implemented. Haven't heard any complaints. So we'll see what happens during the rainy season. I think they had a great plan. They're on site, not only our engineers, but also Tanya and John working with the neighbors to make sure that slopes were good, and hopefully everything works out well when we have those heavy rainstorms. So thanks to Tanya and her team. I believe that was not Middlesex Cathcart were the contractors on that project. And then again, John Fitzgibbon has done a great job. On April 4th, we have a board and committee joint meeting, and that's where I'm going to be working with them, and they're going to be telling us, first is a huge improvement. Thank you, Susan. We're going to be working with the boards and having a workshop with all the boards, not only to update them on new sunshine laws and or policies, procedures, but also get an understanding of where they're at with their projects. We want to make sure that they're all on the same page when it comes to various projects, maybe not all on the same page, but at least they understand where everybody's coming from a various board and committee perspective. And we don't want any duplication of services. So if one board or committee is working on a subject matter and another board committee is working on the same subject matter, maybe they can just share their ideas and or just go ahead and delegate that to the other committee, just so there's not any crossing of efforts on some of those things. So that's going to be on April 4th. April 5th, we have the phase 1 of the Ward Trail and Pedestrian Bridge public meeting. And again, that's a public meeting, not a town council workshop. And it's again to advance again some of the discussions that we've had relative to the trees in that area, as well as the alignment of the trail itself. And I'm happy to announce that we were granted Safe Routes to School funding from the feds, thanks to Congresswoman Demings. So we'll have another $760,000 to put towards that project, and the overall phase 1 of that project is about $903,000. So the majority of that project will be funded through federal dollars, and the balance of that will be kicked in from the town, which we already have funded about $135,000 each fiscal year to put towards a multimodal project, which we've stashed away. So we'll be able to self-fund that project as far as the balance or any cost overrun. So that's a project that I'm very pleased to see moving forward. And if you have any additional comments or concerns, please make sure that you're attending that meeting on April 5th. And that's a public workshop just for the public. And then we'll bring it to town council either through a workshop process and or a town council meeting for final approval and get that thing bid out. The lead time on getting the actual bridge itself, I believe, again, that's between 3 and 6 months. It's a prefab bridge. With delays and everything like that, it's something that we would want to order with enough time to get it done before the next school year.
That is fantastic news, Robert. Great job on that. To you and Tanya and everyone else that was involved in pushing that funding. And of course, Demings as well for signing that. That's great news. So I know a lot of people are excited about that first phase, getting that bridge installed so that we can really connect, both aspects of the town.
Yeah, and it gets us started on our overall master plan on working with the entire West Orange community by working with Bike Central Florida and the healthcare district on trying to get additional funding for not only connecting our trail systems, but improving our non-existent trail systems. So we're working with them on prioritization. It'd go through like a TAC or technical advisory committee, and then it would go to the executive board who would approve the spending and the prioritization of projects. But I think Healthy West Orange has dedicated at least $5 million to the connection system. So we're going to hopefully leverage some of those funds to get phase 1B and or get the entire phase 1 completed. All that would connect us from, I would say, Park Avenue all the way down to probably 6th Avenue.
That's great. That's terrific. Good job.
Yeah.
Is that meeting going to be Zoom? I know you said it was a public meeting.
Zoom.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, with Zoom, I get a lot more participation than when people have to drive somewhere. I know I got dinged at one of the last meetings relative to having Zoom, but
Maybe it's in Pittsburgh, so Zoom is our only option.
I'm in Windermere this spring.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay.
I'll be in Port Orange next week, but yes, I'm here.
Okay.
No, I know someone said that. I mean, most of the people that I've talked to prefer the Zoom, truthfully.
Yeah.
That was kind of an outlier for, I heard her say that at the meeting as well, but I'm fine with Zoom. And most of the people I talk to like Zoom because, a lot of them just don't have time to get there and they can hurry up and pop on and pop back off when they need to. So I just wanted to double check so I can let people know. So
yeah, definitely. We'll be posting it. We'll be doing the door knockers, I believe, too. And you can actually hear everybody on Zoom calls as opposed to the hybrid not hybrid, but whenever we have a workshop or anything like that, excuse me,
right.
It's hard for, people to hear people that are at the podium and then also town council.
Right.
But we will be working on that this fiscal year, next fiscal year, as far as town hall improvements. We want to get town facilities completed. Then we're working on the pavilion with the Rotary, who will be making the recommendation for the design build contractor in April. So we'll see that moving forward as well.
Okay, thank you.
On April 7th, I'm happy to announce that we will be having our grand opening of our new facilities. We've had a lot of punch list items that we've had to take care of and correct, but on April 7th, it's a Thursday, from 5 to 8 p.m. we'll have an open house. We'll have light hors d'oeuvres, and then Tim's Wine will be providing beer and wine and water and Cokes. So make sure you come out there, take a tour, and I'll be happy to make sure that it can be a personal tour since there's only Brandy and Susan on here right now throughout the entire area. So it's going to be a great event. It's going to be nice, and we are going to probably post a video of the construction overview that HJ High did, as well as GAI. So it's a really good video. It's about 6 minutes long, but it shows the progression of the construction and actually shows the interior of the new facilities as well. So we're really excited about that.
Is there going to be a ribbon cutting ceremony or a smashing of a champagne bottle or something?
That is not smashing of a champagne bottle, because that's alcohol abuse.
Yeah.
But definitely ribbon cutting. We will be working with the West Orange Chamber. We've already invited them. They'll be here. So you have Stina, you'll have the red ribbon, so on and so forth. So we'll make sure. And Elders Luncheon is on April 5th as well. So make sure that we're all coming to there, because from what I hear from Councilmember Williams is that the person that is willing to donate the barbecue, I think it is, Susan, is a great cook, and they're going to start cooking it, I think, early that morning. And so it's going to be just a fantastic meal. So I'm definitely going to make sure I put that on my calendar.
Yeah, me too. By the way, I spoke to Dan Higgins recently, and do we have somebody lined up to photograph the open house or anything of that nature?
I believe Diane is reaching out to him or has reached out to him. I'm not
Okay,
sure.
good.
I'll check with her, but I know that we're getting
Yeah.
a professional photographer. You have Dan, you have Jennifer Roper, and I think there's another person in town that does professional photography. So, we've given some work to Jennifer in the past, so maybe it's Dan's turn. But yeah,
Okay.
we'll be reaching out to them. Town council meeting on April 12th. Most of the discussion that will be on April 12th will be relative to RFQs, RFPs. We had legal services, land use, consultants, building services, and inspection services. And then the pavilion RFQ as far as design build will be on there as well. So it's not going to be as heavy as an agenda as it was in March. But again, we're moving forward with making sure that our procurement processes are being followed, and we're getting the best bang for our buck. So that's going to be on April 12th. On April 13th, we have the Oakdale workshop. That's going to be going over some of the concerns relative to speeding. We have the data. I'll be drafting a report, and that'll be attached to an agenda packet that'll be sent out, so everybody has the same opportunity to take a look at that data relative to the traffic counts that we did on Oakdale. I would say for at least 30 days, which is more than we've done in the past. And that's
I got a
April.
quick- Go
Sure.
ahead. Well, I just have two questions on that one. So I'd like, if I could, to get a copy of the results ahead of time, because just so I'm a little bit more prepared. And then the second thing is, so I know that you guys, I got the door knocker. Are you only giving door knockers, because there was complaints from people on other streets in the past? So are the only people getting door knockers the people on Oakdale? Or are you guys including people on East 9th, Bessie, East, all the other streets that kind of get our traffic for this quadrant?
Only people within 500 feet of the impacted areas. If not, we're having to do door knockers for the entire town, and Public Works are the ones that put out those door knockers. So anybody within 500 feet of that road should be getting the door knockers. And then hopefully word of mouth, just making sure that you're pinging your neighbors. We're advertising as much as we can to get people interested in this public workshop, because it's just going to be an information gathering workshop with myself, Tanya, Chief Ogden, discussing the issues that people are having out there. And then we're going to take it to long range planning, have them discuss it, and then whatever recommendations come out of long range planning, have a town council workshop.
Okay, so would it be possible for me, I don't care about names or anything, but would it be possible for me to see a list of addresses that it was mailed to? So if there's any, I'll spread the word to who I know, but like, if that way I get a general idea of who's getting notified with our 500 feet rule, because I don't want to sit and measure that on a map.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, because we send like a map over to Public Works, so I'll make sure we can get that sent over to you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
On April 16th, the Easter Bunny will be traveling around Windermere. We've seen a lot of success with our parade that we do with the law enforcement agencies. So we'll be doing that as well. So on April 16th, we'll be sending out information relative to the route and times. I know that there's several other communities that are still doing the egg. I know Oakland's doing a helicopter egg drop. And so the other communities are doing Easter egg hunts. But we've seen that the parade is a great way to, again, see the law enforcement officers. Also, it's an easier way to make sure that, it's not outside of Windermere that we're catering to, but actual Windermere residents by throwing out eggs and seeing them, and so on and so forth. So that's going to be on the 16th. On the 26th of April, we'll be doing my mid-year budget report to town council. It may be boring for some, but it also gives you a good idea of where we're at financially with the town as far as finances and expenditures. Right now, we're doing pretty well. We're very cautious in our estimates from last fiscal year, still getting out of the COVID era. But right now with the all the revenues are looking good. So we may be able to release some of the projects that have been on hold for quite some time due to the uncertainties of the revenues. That's basically a quick overview of some of the projects that we've been working on. I know it's almost 8 o'clock and I want to keep this to about an hour. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions or add any additional items if you so choose.
Give me a second. I'm checking my notes.
No problem, Randy.
And real quick, any update on the, or on the next meeting for the 500 block? Any progress there? Do you?
They wanted to meet with tree board first.
Okay. All right. Well, we haven't heard from them yet. So like we talked about earlier, we'd like to see that tree survey as soon as possible and definitely well in advance of any meetings that are coming up. So look forward to hearing from them. Susan, anything else on that regard?
Not that I can think of, as long as we get the paperwork and we can meet, and then we can move forward from there.
Okay.
I'd also see any new renderings that they've done prior to the meeting itself.
Yeah, that would be nice.
That would be helpful, yes.
I'm trying not to cough. This is gonna make me cough, but yeah, no, I mean, that just seems to be. Actually, I saw the BOCC meeting, so I didn't feel bad. You know, you had one developer that was there that was like, oh, you know, they emailed staff, I think yesterday
Wow.
or Monday at noon, and then staff completed a report by 5 p.m. on Monday afternoon when it was going to be discussed the next day. And it was a apartment complex that was going to be developed on Avalon Road off of 545 too. So it's pretty much that little triangle piece of property that's right there. And you know, the issue was that they were looking for a waiver or a variance from going from 3 stories to 4 stories. And there is a design standard that is for Horizons West that restricts development to 4 stories, or actually 3 stories, I'm sorry. And they wanted to go to 4 stories, but because the design guidelines made them have, like, you know, the vernacular kind of architectural design, they're able to do 4 stories that would be what is considered to be and look like a 3-story structure. It sounds confusing, but what they're looking at doing is flat roofs. So they're able to do a 4-story structure at the same height as other 3-story structures that are surrounding it. But that design guideline has not been changed at this time. So, you know, the developers up there, you know, yeah, it was pretty good seeing the dynamic between Commissioner Wilson and the developer, to where, you know, they got that at 5 o'clock the night before the meeting, and there's no transparency. There's no way that, you know, Commissioner Wilson can make a really informed decision and or communicate to her constituents that, you know, has this been really vetted out, because it just came up the night before. So that was the argument that she made. And then the developer, of course, objected because they have carrying costs of $60,000 a month. So, but the BOCC decided to go ahead and table that discussion or the decision until Commissioner Wilson had time to reach out to her district to get comments, especially from the neighboring communities. So I thought that was really good, but I know that we're not the only ones that have these last minute changes. And I'm glad to see that, you know, council does take that stance that they typically wait, you know, for people to make those, absorb the changes and comments and not actually design at the dais.
Yeah, we don't want to design on the fly. That never works out well.
No, I mean, the Sansi was one meeting that, you know, I wish I can go back and, you know, we're talking about transportation impacts, so on and so forth. You know, we're going in and out probably about 6 or 7 times that night, which is not really the best way to approach a large development.
Okay, I'm gonna pick around at a couple of different random questions I have. So I know there was a lot of talk at this last meeting about the council meeting about the 50-foot setback or whatever. And I saw it was actually the project notes for that agenda about talking to the lake consultant about that, but that was in reference to the actual variance. Is there plans to talk with the lake consultant about us potentially changing our ordinance? And is that kind of, God, last month's meeting was so long. So was that kind of like where it where it ended? Is that you guys are looking into potentially changing the ordinance from the 50-foot setback and getting her opinion on that, or?
Yes, I mean, it's not just when you say 50-foot setback, there's all these different, I guess, other issues that you have to take into account. Is it just 50-foot setback from the normal highway water elevation from the lakefront? Or are you talking about a seawall, canal? How do other areas relate to those different, constraints, stuff like that? So yes, we're going to be working with a lake consultant as well as Wade Trim. And I think we have a Zoom call next week to discuss that, as far as, how are we going to approach this, what other jurisdictions are we going to look at, because we're probably going to have to, I'm not sure we're going to be able to get into the April DRB meeting, but probably the May DRB meeting to get their recommendations to town council if there's any changes that will be considered. And I'm sure we're going to have another public meeting or workshop with not only town council, but also with the public to go over it if and any changes are going to be considered.
Robert, do you know what the setback requirement for Orange County is? Is it 25 feet?
I believe it all depends on where you're located.
Well, like for unincorporated Orange County, yeah, I mean, you may not have the answer, but on the west side of Lake Butler, for instance.
I don't know.
Okay. I guess we'll look at all that.
Well,
Yeah,
one
I
of the
know.
things I'd like to mention is that, and I didn't really get up and speak about it at a meeting because I didn't figure it would affect in terms of approval of the variance or not, just at looking at alone. But when we're talking about the ordinance, back when we had the issue where they cut down like the 85 or whatever amount of cypress trees it was on that property on Lake Butler Boulevard, I had been in contact at that time with Orange County EPD about it. And they weren't even allowed to remove like the wetland grasses down in part of the zone that Scott had approved tree removal in. And so not only did we have the issues that happened with the cypress trees from our tree permit perspective, but Orange County got involved and was supposed to be making them plant some of that back. And I believe that was 50 foot when I talked to them. Lord knows where my notes are from that. But I mean, I think one of the things that we have to consider is everyone keeps trying to compare us to Winter Garden or, Oakland or any of them. But they're on Lake Apopka and it is not the same level of lake at all.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is everyone keeps talking about, well, what is and I mean, in the lake lady did address part of it, she addressed everything, but everyone kept focusing on the meeting about the chemicals from the pool or the salt water for the pool or the pool popping up. That's not really what it's about. I mean, it's the penetration of the water getting filtered before it gets to the lake. And even though that seawall goes down, it's still ultimately going to end up in the lake. I don't care if that seawall is 10 feet down, 20 feet down, 50 feet down. In New York City, when I worked up there and we would do this, because I mean, we put those in. Sometimes we built wetlands, sometimes it was a seawall. And they would go, really deep, but you're still adjacent to that waterway. So everyone's focused on the chemicals, which I thought it was fabulous that she put in there, that the chemicals have algicides in them, which is totally true. We all have to use those in the summertime here, which would affect the algae and everything else in the water system. It's going to affect everything. But, and I think I saw that Liz Ander, among other people, she had a really good comment, which I didn't see it before the town council meeting, about the setting precedent. I know we're not setting a legal precedent with all these variance requests, but we're still setting an expectation, because all everyone ever says is 6 other people have it, 5 other people have it. So I think we just need to be really careful on changing a major ordinance like that. And we really need to get feedback, and maybe not just from the lake consultant, but Fish and Wildlife, Conservation Commission, South Water Management District, what their opinions on all of this are, because it still impacts to the lake that's affected by, everybody. I would hate for it to just all rely on one consultant too, although she seems to be along the right train of thought, so.
Yeah, and what people have to understand too, this isn't just for pools. The
Right.
setback is to
Right.
structures.
Yeah.
So you can
Right.
have a structure within 50 feet of the normal high water elevation, but if you start moving that closer and closer and closer, you're getting closer and closer to the lakes.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be a pool, it could be an actual building itself. So
Yeah.
those are things that we're looking at and making sure that, whatever we provide for council to take a look at, is going to be a huge educational process on the differences in,
Right.
not only the different ordinances and what the intent of those ordinances are for those other jurisdictions, but also what's right for the town of Windermere. So,
Right.
we were hoping to get something in front of DRB in April, but it's probably looking like May because we don't want to rush this thing through.
Oh, no, definitely not. I mean, and the other thing is that that one girl, for example, was like, oh, I bought my house when I was in my 20s and I didn't know. You can only blame ignorance so long. I mean, she had the forethought to know how to buy a house, which isn't an easy process if she's a first time home buyer, but you buy a house with a small lot and a canal front. And I mean, I looked at those with Chris Sapp too. Some of them were on the market when we were house hunting here. And the reality is we looked at it and we're like, well, you got the lake, that's great, but you're not going to have room for a pool. And I think that's pretty general knowledge. So, but yeah, building a real building there would be to me, it's all the same. Building or pool, in my mind, it's the same. It's impervious surface. I don't care whether it's filled with water, or it's got a structure sitting on top of it.
Right.
So, but, okay, so that was that. When is the projects meetings now?
It's usually the first Monday of the month.
Okay, because it was February 14th this month, or at least that's what I think the note states were.
It was Valentine's Day.
Okay, that's a Tuesday, was that a Monday?
Yeah, that was Monday. And the reason that was moved is because I think somebody was out of town, but we typically have it like our next one is on April 4th. So it's the first Monday of the month.
And where do those meet? Can I go to those?
You can go to them. They're not real public meetings. It's just a meeting with staff to go over, and those are Zoom meetings.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's mostly for, again, it's an internal staff meeting, so we can go over the projects and stuff like that. And that's why we make sure we leave as much detail as possible in the actual project notes, as because we don't remove a project until it's completed. So that's why you see some on there that have paragraphs that are like a page long, because we want to make sure that everybody understands the history behind it and how long this thing's going on. So we hold ourselves accountable to, okay, why is this going on so long? If you see the same comment and repeated, then why is that not moving forward?
Is Brandy on the list for distribution of the notes? If
not, I can make her part of it.
Because I think Bob McKinley's on there, a couple other folks. If not able to attend the meetings, at least get the information quickly.
Right. Yeah, because reading it like a month after is.
The great part is the new stuff is in red, so you could just skip to the bottom. Yeah, that's the real benefit of those.
Yeah, I usually have the notes sent out within 48 hours of the meeting itself.
Okay, yeah, that would be good if I could be on that list then. That way I can keep up, because sometimes I have to read the black lines because I'm a few months behind reading them occasionally, because I haven't been keeping up with those. Now, the other thing I just wanted to ask is, so you said the LRP would have the meeting after we do our Oakdale workshop. So that'll be, I know theirs was canceled for March. So you're thinking it'll be on LRP in April and then town council in May to talk about whatever with Oakdale?
It'd probably be a town council workshop in May.
In May.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it would be April, or does the LRP only meet every other month?
No, they meet every month. So they're probably going to have their meeting in April to talk about this, because they have a few things that they're working on. I know they're working on the brick pavers in downtown area, sustainability plan, and I forget the third item that we're currently discussing, but the cut through traffic is always a continued issue with LRP.
Crosswalks, placement, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, they've already located all three, and then I'll be meeting with Windermere 1 and Dine next week to go over the possible funding of their number 1, and then again we have a 2 and a 3. I can't. It's on the project notes, the actual ranking of those 3
Right.
areas that they made a recommendation. But I think that take that town council anyway, because it's $16,000 expenditure.
Okay, and then I have 2 comments back to Bessie project for 1 second here. I know the timeline's been pushed, so that probably helps. But one of the things that we talked with Tanya and John Fitzgibbons about, and I don't remember if it was a charrette or a workshop, but we had said, there was weird placement of the water meters on the plans for once, the water meters would be in place with the Bessie project. So like, for example, mine was on the front corner of the house. I don't think you were on that meeting. I'm trying to remember who was, because I remember Nancy Bardo and them talked too. So I think it was some sort of workshop, but anyway.
We would just stub it out. We wouldn't put the meter in.
Right, but I
Meter is
mean,
Orange County.
right, but the meter locations were already on the plans.
Yeah, we already, Brandy, yes, that was brought up. We've discussed that with the engineers and they will work with you on better placement of those. That's not a problem. We're aware.
Right. Yeah, that I knew. It's just that whenever we had that meeting, they said they would come out. John Fitzgibbons said that you guys would come out to meet with the residents. And then I followed up after the holidays and asked, and then it was kind of the same thing, that you guys would meet with residents to talk about where they would want, where it made most sense to have their water meters located. So I've had neighbors ask me, what's the update? Because I haven't told them anything since January. So.
Yeah, and we'll definitely do that.
Okay. So just.
Orange County is, again, utilities is taking a long time for reviewing any project.
Okay. And then the other question, and some of it, this was also from some of the neighbors, was, do we know how much it will cost to tie in, or who we need to contact to find that out?
That would be through Orange County Utilities. You'd have to pay a meter cost, and typically you pay what's called a connection fee, which is your share of the well system. But we would be paying the money for the extension fee to get the location to your house. You just have to pay for the meter and whatever connection fees they require.
Okay, so I can call that. We can call them and find that out directly.
Yeah, well, I mean, you just ask for, okay, if potable water is accessible to my house and stubbed out, how much would it be? Because if you just go and give you your address, you can be like, oh, it's going to cost $300,000 because there's no line that's out there that's adjacent to your home.
Okay.
So I would just ask, how much is the meter, and then how much is it to connect once that meter is in place?
Okay, gotcha. I will let them, because I've been asked that one like 5 times. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, and then let me see. I think. Oh, I was just curious. Did anyone from the town end up going to the Lake Butler Advisory Board meeting when they were discussing Bird Island, or did we hear anything about just the general opinion of that group? I would assume they are kind of in agreement with us, but I know the mayor had mentioned that.
Yeah, they're in agreement with the Town of Windermere and made the recommendation for the adoption of the ordinance changes.
Okay. And is there a new date set since they kicked it down the?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, but you'll put that on the social media once y'all know.
Absolutely.
I think that's it for me. Yep, that's it for me.
All right, no problem. Again, thank you all for joining. I know it's 8:15, so I think it's very productive. And again, we'll be posting this on our YouTube channel. So make sure that you feel free to share it with your friends, neighbors, just so they're getting the accurate information on what's going on in and around town as far as all the various projects that we're working on. Again, thank you all for joining. Susan, Councilmember Martini, Brandy, and Public Works Director Tanya. So
thank you all. I
Thank you,
appreciate it.
guys.
Thank you. Have a good night. Thanks, everybody.
good night.
Have a good one.
Month.